Hey y'all, thank you guys so much for watching. Today we have a really interesting testimonial from Todd Stroud, who's a retired police officer that was involved in the Jaycee Dugard case. You may have heard his name, but if not, he tells us more on the Jaycee Dugard situation, about how he came to Christ, and even random things like how he broke his ankle recently. So stay tuned. We give God all the praise. Thank you, Lord, for having this happen. Enjoy the testimonial.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you and we just lay everything at your feet. We ask, Lord, that everything within self we die to tonight, and that anything that we speak about or that comes to heart, we ask that the Holy Spirit moves us and continues to guide us. We ask, Lord, that you just go before us. And with everything that's being said, Father, we ask that hearts be opened, minds being transformed, and that someone out there that is watching or listening, that they can take something from Todd and they can apply it to their own lives. That is the thing, is that we speak your name and that we know that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So we ask that we plant seeds and that you continue to water. We love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Todd. So the first thing is we're going to, that we want to know is, how was it growing up? How was your lifestyle? Were you, one of those mischievous kids, or were you?
Well, I grew up in Martinez, and I grew up with a single mom. My parents divorced when I was 4 years old, and wasn't brought up in any kind of a religious sense at all. Or we may have gone to church once or twice, and we were never even anywhere near getting close to God at that point. Never really talked about it growing up. But I think I was a pretty good kid, growing up and going through high school, and my mom, I think, did a pretty good job raising me.
Right. So you have siblings, then?
I have a sister, yes.
You have a sister?
Younger sister, yeah.
Younger sister, so you were the older brother?
Yes.
And so you were kind of the man of the house then, per se.
And in a lot of cases it ends up being that way, and that's just the way that it is. Yeah, I was the man of the house.
Growing up with a mother and a sister and trying to figure out life yourself.
Exactly.
What high school did you go to?
Alhambra High School.
Alhambra, and that's in Martinez, correct?
That's at Martinez, yes.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's funny how I grew up with a lot of siblings. So I have, there's 8 of us total.
Okay.
And out of the first 6, I was the youngest, and then I have a younger brother and younger sister. So,
okay.
Seeing them be the men of the house at times. But I was more of a daddy's little girl.
Okay. So
that's my biggest thing. And you being a child for your mom and being the man of the house, how did that take a toll on you?
Well, I grew up, I think, a little bit faster than maybe most kids do.
Yes.
When you have that kind of responsibility. I don't necessarily regret it. I had a paper route when I was 12, delivering the Martinez News Gazette, myself and my sister, and going around and getting up. I think back in the day, back there, the News Gazette was 6 days a week. So getting up at 5:30 in the morning, folding newspapers, going out on our bikes if it wasn't raining, and delivering papers, and then going out and collecting. We used to go collect at that time, which would never happen in today's day and age. But
right.
From that point forward, it always comes up in discussions that I've always had a job. I've never not worked since 3 years ago 2.5 years ago when I retired. So it was the responsibility part was there. I worked for for most of my clothes and that sort of thing. If I want to buy baseball cards or buy any kind of whatever, I had a job to do.
Right, being taken on the responsibility, especially at a young age, which is awesome. I meant, people nowadays, which I hate to say, it's like Gen Z, they call it. They want everything handed to them.
Yeah.
And hearing your story and being able to go back to, you had to work for anything, baseball cards, as little as that. I have a grandson who just wants everything like, let me have, which is, something I'm trying to teach him. But moving forward with that, it becomes a challenge. As growing up and you're responsible. And I remember paper routes. Mm-hmm. We used to get up really early, like you said, 5:30, and I used to help my brothers and them roll papers and they get on their bikes, and then I go back to sleep. But they'd be up early doing the paper route. And back then, like you said, taking and collecting the money, whether it was 75 cents or $1.50 if they did for the, month or year. Growing up and moving into adulthood, which so happens that you were adulthood when you were younger, but growing up and moving adulthood, did you have any plans on becoming, anybody or something, or what was your goals? How did you move forward?
Well, when I was really, really young, I started watching Adam 12 and Emergency, and I know I'm dating myself a lot, but
No.
I grew up with watching those shows. My mom worked for the sheriff's department. She was a civilian employee there, and my dad was a reserve for both Martinez Police Department and Concord Police Department.
Okay.
And so I was around that a lot. I had a lot of friends in high school that wanted to be firefighters, and it was kind of a mixed thing for me. Which way do I go? And they didn't really have an Explorer program. I started getting, they had somehow I was introduced to the Explorer program at Martinez Police Department, and they didn't have a fire one, but I chose that, and I pretty much stuck with it at the age of 15.
Wow. Okay, so you kind of already had that mindset.
I kind of had that mindset, and it quite honestly, it kept me on the straight and narrow going through, because I was focused on that. At 18, I was hired as a reserve deputy sheriff with Contra Costa County Sheriff, and at that time, I don't know if it's changed or not, but at that time, I was the youngest. I was sworn deputy of reserve at 18 years old, and I look at it now, it's like I can't even picture an 18-year-old going out and carrying a gun, qualifying, going out and do that stuff, and it was different. And we talked about the responsibility part of it. I think that kind of pushed me that way to be responsible. I passed all the psych tests and all that other stuff, and they took a chance on me, and they didn't know where to put me. They didn't know at an 18-year-old cop, I guess, and I at 18 I looked like I was 15 still.
Right.
So that was that part of the responsibility part. And then after I did the reserve thing, I got Concord PD put me through the academy, and I ended up with a career with Concord PD for 30 years, where I retired.
Wow, that's amazing. To me, it just sounds like as you were growing up, though, as a believer, for myself, like God was preparing you for those next moments. And I know that at the beginning you mentioned to us before we started recording that it was a minute before you actually became a believer, which we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I believe just by hearing your story right now that God was preparing you the responsibility of becoming the person that you are today, which is awesome, which is really awesome.
I believe so too. You look back and you look at the different things that happen in your life, and everything happened for a reason.
Correct. Growing now, your sister, you say, right? Did she go into a path of straight and narrow, or was it more of a because she was younger than you, correct?
She was 2.5 years younger. She is, yeah.
Graduate from high school and follow mom's footsteps, maybe, or did she take a totally different?
She went into college, did some college, and did some full-time work, different things, and ended up getting married and basically becoming a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I mean, a lot of women like to be a stay-at-home mom, with the careers and all that. But I guess you taking that step as the man of the house, your mom must have been really proud of you.
I hope so. I hope I made her proud.
Yeah, really proud. I'm going to bring up a subject, but in you being in the law enforcement, and by all means, if there's something that you don't want to speak about, or you do, or if you're uncomfortable, we have no problem with you, letting us know. But there was an incident when you were in the law enforcement back in, I think it was 2009. How did you prepare yourself for that? Not knowing, but knowing that you were going to have to do a great diligence for the Lord.
That was a tough one. And we're specifically talking the Jaycee Dugard discovery in Concord, and where I was working. How I prepared myself to deal with that, I don't know. I think a lot of it, I was on our peer support team. I was coordinating our peer support team, I believe at that time, which is providing peer-to-peer assistance with officers during critical incidents and that sort of thing. So we had some kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, first aid, trauma, coaching, kind of counseling kind of stuff going on. That was I remember the day, in fact, I was about a block away when the call came out, and I was working in investigations at that time. I didn't have my portable radio with me, and I didn't know until I came back to the station to find out that what had happened. And the ironic thing was, like, when one of my partners had mentioned when I came back to the station, if I heard what was going on, I said, "No, what's going on?" And she said, "They found Jaycee Dugard and around the corner." Basically, it was at the parole office on Parkside, and I'd pause for a second. I remembered that name because at that time, I don't know if you remember, there was several young girls that were kidnapped during that time.
Within the time period.
Within a year or so. Amber Schwartz Garcia and Irene Mishloff and just to name a few of them. And Jaycee was one of them, even though she was kidnapped out of South Lake Tahoe. I remembered that name. So it's like, holy cow, these things don't happen.
No.
We don't, after 18 years, it just...
For a long time.
Yeah, these things just don't happen.
It's a long time.
So.
I mean, like I mentioned, putting you at the right place at the right time. God works crazy and mysterious ways, and that's what I believe. And, I've known that since I was little, but to have someone like you, and what I mean like you is like a young man being the father of the household, being the man, living with your mom and your sister, working at age 15, taking on that responsibility of stuff. God has really placed you in a place where you're very humble. You're very, very humble. I've talked to you many times. I've seen you with your beautiful bride. As you can tell, we look over to this way because his beautiful bride's over there, which you guys will hear about her later. And you are just a very subtle, humble man. I don't know if people tell you that, but you are really humble. And I remember speaking to you in the past where you've told me you don't take credit for anything. You just continue to be you. And whatever's laid before you, you take it with great pride because it's something special to you. Mm-hmm. And in that case, when you were, as they call the chosen one, as the gatekeeper, as you would say, for her, how did that turn out for the future for you? I mean, what were the steps that you had to take to actually protect this woman and her two children?
Well, it was pretty difficult actually. I've never really spoken publicly. I gave one reporter interview that he got a hold of me during the anniversary, and we spoke, but he was the only one. At that time, there was a huge international interest in the case.
Right.
Basically, how I got involved, it was kind of several different things. We had the girls, their daughters were in the station. At that time, they hadn't eaten lunch, and I run out, and this is stuff that we do.
Right.
We just go out and grab them. Some of you guys eat McDonald's, and grab them some McDonald's, came back, and I was asked to sit with them for a little bit. I was asked to go downstairs in the jail and keep an eye on Philip Garrido for a little bit. And then I came up and was asked to, the FBI, there was a series of things that were getting involved, including bringing the FBI in, El Dorado County Sheriff. And I was asked to sit with Jaycee for a little bit. I introduced myself to her, and we chatted for a little bit and we talked about the preparation part. Being a cop is you have to relate to people. You have to be personable. You have to be able to relate to them. She was a victim at that time. I mean, she still is a victim, and she's a victim. And I knew that there was probably some really bad things that happened with this thing. We didn't get into a lot of details on that stuff at that time. But in using my kind of, I don't want to call peer support or, experience I had dealing with other officers in very sensitive circumstances and stuff, that I think that led my supervisor at that time to just say, just kind of roll with this thing here.
Right.
So that led to a series of different things, and including getting them out of the police department. And we couldn't go through the front. We had to go through the back. I had to sneak them out through an unmarked car, and we brought them down to the Hilton and stayed with them, got them comfortable down there. We had to, again, sneak them in down there. A lot of stuff that I wasn't really trained. This is the first time I did this as a cop. I'd known it's just literally flying by the seat of our pants out here and trying to, the main thing is we needed to protect these girls.
Right.
And we had a reunion with the mom the following day, but we needed to make sure they were going to be okay there, that we didn't have any press following us. And that led to, a bunch of other things going on. But that was kind of the start of things with her.
Right. Because preparing you, and then how many officers would you say were in that department? Was there a couple hundred? Were there...
For Concord Police?
Yeah, about that time.
Sworn?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, that was 2009. I probably around 160 or so sworn.
So let's say
Give or take some few.
160, maybe 180, whatever it is, the number is. You were the chosen one. Like, you were that person. And what I mean by that is, like, God takes that person and chose you as a humble person to be accountable for these women, you know. So I believe it was God. As
too.
you look back, you know, it's kind of, you think about it and you're like, you know, how God just really worked. And that's the reason why we bring and ask this story, to show people that you're not only your duty kicked in as an officer, but the duty as a son, as the peer that had to be a father at the moment, and a brother. So being raised by your mother and having a sister and your father out of the picture, God used you so that you'd be able to comfort the women that need it the most. Do you ever look at your life like that today? Like if you ever think back at that moment, like, you know what, he really did raise me up this way. God did.
Not until just now. You know, it is interesting that you say that. You know, it could have been a number of other people that are perfectly capable of getting involved. And my thing from getting to know her and then staying in contact with her for several years afterwards, and involving my wife and my family, of course, and keeping as tight a circle as we could.
Right.
You know, not telling anybody and that sort of thing, because there was just this huge amount of international press attention. They were clamoring to trying to get her first picture, and we had to sneak her around different places, and I helped her move. My family got involved, helped her with her first Christmas present, helped her celebrate her first birthday, and we wanted to try to, these girls, we wanted to try to give them as much normalcy as we could from and you take off my cop uniform, I'm not a cop anymore, you know. And then you also have to remember that she went through some significant trauma by a male kidnapper and his wife, and I was to gain her trust as a male cop, and the issues that she had while she was in captivity, and I don't want to say distrust of law enforcement, but there were some missteps along the way.
You're a man.
While she was in you know, the sheriff's department, there were some missteps with that, and I don't want to place blame on anything, but there was some distrust there, and we had to work not just me, but my family worked very hard to just try to show some normalcy. This is how kind of normal is.
So it got personal. It got really personal for you, and like I say, God equipped you for that moment, and just hearing you takes me back to, it was all God, you know, the foundation of it, everything in place to you. Like you said, 18 years, that's, you know, 18 years for someone to surface is really, really hard, like really hard, people, when you really think about it. So God prepared you through your childhood, through your teens, through becoming an officer, you know, at 18, and sworn in at how old? Was it 18 or?
Well, I was sworn in as a reserve at 18, and then as a full-time officer at 21.
See, that's nowadays I know officers that are barely getting sworn in at the age of 20.
It's
22, 25.
It's actually kind of rare to take an officer at this day and age at 20, 21. At state law, I believe, is maybe 21 now. It used to be 18, but
the ones that we've
something happened along the way where it's like, I don't know, too many 18 to 21 year olds that would, number one, he would want to do it, but that would have the
raising his hand
responsibility.
I think God was preparing you. Yes, preparing you. I thank you for sharing that part of your life with us.
You're welcome.
And I asked, though, like I said, I asked that because you're humble. You're a humble man. And like I said, speaking to you and being around your wife and you, and even interrupting a dinner when you're eating with her and asking questions, and
that's right.
You know, you're really humble, and I hope you know that you're really a humble man, and God uses you, and I respect the fact that you always, when I've talked to you, you said, you know, I don't, you know, take, you know, that's no, not me, but it is who you are. So after that, and, you know, relationship, and we don't have to get into detail, and you and your family getting her comfortable, and you know, and making her part of your family is just amazing. So after that, when you decided to retire from law enforcement, how was that for you?
Oh boy, it's a mixed bag. It really is a mixed bag. I retired in August of 2020.
Okay.
Right in the middle of COVID.
Wow.
Didn't really know, you know, and I talked about earlier about how I had worked since I was 12, and I mean that I had worked since I was 12. I'm trying to remember back. There was no gaps. There was no, I'm going to take a break, a breather, or whatever. It was, delivering papers to go working at Burger King, to working janitorial stuff, to working at Safeway, to ultimately where I live. And I don't regret that. It made me who I am today. I'm glad I had that work ethic. I can hopefully teach that to my kids, and I at least be an example for that. But it was weird because I was ready to retire. I wasn't getting any younger. I had some back issues, and I was ready to retire. But I was coming out in COVID. Everything was locked down. It was a very, very, as you remember, very, very strange time. Very depressing time. I kind of lost the contact at work. That's what cops say, firefighters, and all that stuff. That when you retire, you lose those contacts. You're not part of that team anymore. The camaraderie. And I wasn't working. I wasn't doing anything. Which was for the first time in my life since I was 12. I wasn't doing anything.
It must have been hard.
It was very difficult for me. My wife can attest to that. Maggie can attest to that. It was very difficult for me. I'm getting better, but I had to learn new hobbies, new ways to realize that this is the time to I've got this window, and I'm not to be able to retire at 51 years old is not a lot of people get to do that.
No.
So I'm very fortunate to be able to do that, and I don't take that for granted. I'm very, very thankful for that. But I also know that there's a window for me to I'm going to be active for so long and all that. So it was about trying to learn new hobbies and new ways to keep my mind going and take care of things around the house that need to be taken care of and that sort of thing.
Right on. That's awesome. We're going to go into when you first realized that you wanted to be a follower of Jesus, like when you truly wanted to turn your life over to Christ and have him lead you. Were you already married to Maggie, or was it before? Or
so my walk with Christ is probably not unlike a lot of people. It was growing up. I did not have a relationship with Christ. We were not a religious. I hate to use the term religion or religious. We were not brought into any churches. My parents didn't have any religion or they didn't even really talk about it. Now fast forward a little bit, going into police work. I had friends that were Christians that were, different faith, and I kind of listened to them here and there, and I go through, and it usually, I think it happens to a lot of people when you go through a traumatic event, and in my case, it was a divorce. I was married previously for 12 years, and we ended up going through a divorce. I had a 10-year-old son and a 15-year-old stepdaughter at the time, and it wasn't my decision, but it was very difficult to go through, and I know I sought counseling through a Christian church and met with a Christian pastor, and I liked the feeling of that. I wanted to go there, but I drifted, and it was after I separated that my best friend had said, well, hey, I remember exactly where I was in my old house, sitting on the stairs, and it was literally the worst time in my life. And when you're trying to go through that and a divorce and separation, and how's this gonna work? This wasn't in the plans here. This is it was about 2 months after the separation, and my buddy says, hey, what do you think about Maggie? And I said, well, what do you think? What are you talking about? He says, well, she's single right now. Would you be willing to talk to her? I said, why? My first response was, why? What would she want to do with me? I'm in the worst spot in my life right now. And long story short is, I said, yeah, okay, give me the phone number and give me your phone number. And I don't know how soon after that I called her. I had to work up the courage, and I called her. We went out to lunch, and the rest is the history. But she's my reason for kind of, I don't want to say I followed Christ at that time, because I still had a lot of time in my career, and I don't know, we talked about it before, but it's like, during my time in career, and I've questioned God a lot. Right.
We all do. We all do.
Before I got to where I am today, and I'm still in the front part of my journey. I'd like to say I have a lot to learn, and but during my career, there was a lot of doubting. I became very cynical. I still am. It's something I need to work on. on. Very distrustful, I guess. When you see as cops, we see the one of the saying, the baddest, the maddest, and the saddest, every single day.
Right.
And people don't call the police to give us hugs.
No.
So it was, you see horrible things, homicides and child deaths and car accidents, and it just, for me personally, the question was always, why did God allow this to happen?
Right.
Why did God allow this to happen? And it wasn't until my wife and I had conversations about this stuff, and she brought it up and had mentioned that, well, it's interesting how people, they question God a lot, but they don't question the devil, and they don't question, well, there's another side to this thing. And that has caused me a lot of, not caused me, but directed me to do a lot of soul searching on that. And I was placed in, going through peer support on both sides of it, on the table, as someone who's been through critical incidents and having gone through, and I'm not shy about saying I've seen counselors during work and talk to them about critical incident stuff. We have to do that as first responders. We have to get those proverbial rocks out of our backpack.
Yes.
And do that. And I remember one counselor telling me one time that you were there, and it was specifically talking about a teenager who was shot and died in front of me, took his last breath and died in front of me. And to this day, it's just one of those things that haunts me. But I remember talking to my counselor about that, and it was basically that, hey, God put you in this. There was a reason why you were here at this particular time, why you didn't call in sick for work that day, why you were there, why you were with this kid, and you were able to give him some comfort during his last breath here. And that stuck with me. There's several things that stuck with me. As a supervisor, when I got promoted, and my wife can attest to this too, I would go to almost every single death call. It was by policy. An officer would go, whether it be a natural or whatever. And I think I was working the weekend shift at that time. And how's your day? She'd call her. I'd call her, or she'd call me midday. How's it going? I've had 2 or 3 so far today, and it was wearing on me. And then when you go and you have to do death notifications and that sort of thing, and again, after more talking this stuff through, it was brought to my attention that, well, there's a reason why you guys, and just talk about me in particular, but I'm talking about everybody else has to go through that. There's a reason why we're in that position. And talking of faith a little bit, God puts us in that position. I have no doubt. And it took me to the later part of my career to start realizing that I'm here. I'm basically a servant of God right now, doing a lot of the stuff. When you're a Sunday morning, and you get it could be a natural death call, and we get a lot of those on Sunday morning, and 75-year-old wife wakes up and finds 77-year-old husband deceased in bed, and she has nobody there.
Right.
We're it.
Right.
We're it. And you have a couple ways to handle it. I mean, you can be, name and date of birth and all that, but there's other parts like we're here, and this person's life is going to change forever.
Right.
And we're right here, and we can either go one way or the other way. And I always chose I want to go this way. I know that their life is going to change and forever. I know the husband's not going to come back, but learning to be able to talk to somebody like that, learning to be able to show some comfort to them. They didn't teach that stuff in academy, but
that's where I see God. Like, that's just where He has taken you from way back then. And the more I hear from you is the more He prepared you for that compassion, for that first step. As you said, their life is going to change forever. We just did a podcast on law enforcement not too long ago. And one thing we mentioned is we don't walk in your shoes. And you see more than any of us see. And that's why when it comes to law enforcement, and not just law enforcement, but fire and all that, but law enforcement for me is a close thing. So when I hear stories like this, and I want to thank you first off for being very transparent, like you went through it, you had to deal with it. And that's why we pray for you, every law enforcement out there all the time. But for you to have to be in those shoes, the shoes I can't be in. I can be a chaplain and hold your hand after the fact, but when you have to be present at the time and actually comfort that person, that takes a lot of God.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of God, and knowing that that's where you're at in that moment in time. That's amazing. amazing. That's amazing. And knowing that you talk to people about it, like you said, counseling or whatever it took, because it wouldn't be fair to the family if you go home and dump everything on them.
No.
And that just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out to that point where, you can't say something to Maggie and then I'll be all like, the next day everything's all flowers and, ice cream. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to live with it. And it's that I, as people would say, tip my hat to you. And I honor that. Really, truly, we love everything that you do. Moving into your story, being in those places and being there for like that old lady or whoever it is there at that time, what goes through your mind? Like because there's got to be something other than, like you said, because people can write a report and take down and put it there and say, hey, you know what, this is how it's going to be. At that time, would you pray before you would do it? Or were you just like, okay, God, this is just you and you got to go before me?
Many, many times. And this, I think, is kind of my walk, my journey.
Yes.
Many times before going to these calls, I would pray. I would ask God for the strength.
Right.
Just to, please, God, just give me the strength this is going to be a tough one. These people, I'm going to have to tell them that they're teenager,
Right.
It's just, it was very, very tough. And, or, baby death or something like this, or just any one of these things. Please, God, give me the strength to be the person that this person needs at this moment. And you have to do it. There's a way to do it. And, that you have to be official about it, but you have to be compassionate about it too. And you just can't do it and walk out the door.
No. So that was going to be my next question too. Like, you don't just go to the house and say da-da-da and then be like, okay, someone will contact you later.
Yeah.
You're there for a minute, and when I mean a minute, like can I hold your hand? What can I do for you right
Exactly.
now? And that's where you have to be.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of humble, because you have to make sure that they're not looking at you just as a law enforcement. You're looking at them as a person. You're a person. You have a family. You have, they don't know if you got kids. They don't know, if something just happened to they don't know any of that. They don't know your story. All they see is a man in a uniform, and how is he going to be? Mm-hmm. And that's huge. So when you put the blue on, you make them who they should be and who we should be able to trust.
And you have to be able to, like I maybe mentioned it, you have to be able to turn it off. There's a time and a place to be the big bad police officer there that, okay, just the facts kind of thing. There's also time that if you need to sit down and pray with that person, I don't have a problem with that. If you want to be able to sit on the couch with that person, being able to call the boss up and say, hey, do you mind if I spend a little bit more time here because they need something. Awesome. They don't have anybody else right now.
That's awesome.
And, that was always I try to let out, train officers and exhibit that behavior that I want them to go before I go. And hopefully it still does. I'm sure it does. There's plenty of great officers out there, but I just don't want them to ever lose that compassion part of it.
Right.
We have to have that.
Like you said, is an off switch. Like, I know I wear a badge, but right now I'm going to be, whether you want me to be a prayer partner, a father, a brother, or a son, whatever you need, that's what I'm there for.
And I'll tell you this too, it's very, very difficult to hold the tears in sometimes. I've had many times where I'll admit it, I've gone out to the patrol car and I've had to decompress and I've cried out there and I know other officers have too. And I want to let them know that anybody that's watching, it's okay to do it.
See?
You have to do that. You have to get it out.
Don't be that macho man and be like, and then wait till you leave if you got to step out for a moment.
And we always talked about it, the difference between firefighters and cops. We work very closely together, but one of the differences, the firefighters, they're a team of 3 usually, and they go and they do their thing and then they're out.
Right.
They sometimes they do a notification, sometimes it's us, but usually it's they come and do their thing, try to work on the patient, and if the patient goes to the hospital, that's one way, or if the patient passes away, then they do their thing and then they go. But they go back and they can decompress with the 3 of them. They go back to usually a fire station, which is really good.
Right.
And we've talked about that before. But cops, what do? We get back into the patrol car by ourselves and then go look at the calls that are pending. And okay, I'll take the next call, and you carry that with you, and then you go home. And my wife can attest to this. So, what happened? How was your day? I don't want to talk about it.
Wow,
I just don't want to talk about it. I just want to. I don't know how to talk about it. It was a crappy day, and
right.
I got better about talking with her about things. There's certain things I I don't necessarily want her to know graphic details about.
Right.
Sometimes she works in the healthcare industry, so she's aware of a lot of this stuff, but I can't thank her enough for being there for me. She was my rock. So it's very, very difficult. This is a profession that historically people just it's kind of frowned upon to go talk about your feelings and all that stuff.
No.
And I'm telling you, you can't do it. You just can't do it. You can't go on and expect to have a 30-year career. And now it's even longer for these new guys.
Yes.
And have this backpack with boulders in it carrying around. It'll eat you up. It'll absolutely eat you up.
Well, that just hit me right now when you said you go into that type of situation and then you get back in your unit, your patrol car, and then you're looking at calls, and it can be anything. It can be I don't know, something stupid, and I don't mean stupid. I mean
what's next in my what's the next call pending in my beat?
It could be two teenagers are arguing when you just had to tell a family member or be somewhere there with them, or it can be I don't even know. I'm trying to, in my brain right now, trying to nothing light about it, but trying to be in your seat right now. And I can't be in your seat because I can't even think, trying to look at a call. I'm like, oh, gotta go over to their house again. They're arguing again, or no. Wow. I never knew that.
Which is, it explains something else when people get an officer, they get their car broken into, or their, a window vandalized, or maybe they get an fender bender and an officer comes out and that officer isn't in the best of moods.
Right.
We don't know what that officer just came from and had to deal with. We don't know what that officer had to deal with 2 days ago and is still processing it and still can't get those images out of his or her mind. We don't know. So I like people to just kind of take that into consideration. Sometimes we have bad days and that's okay too, but we should be professional in that. But also sometimes it's really hard to wrap that up and pretend like it doesn't affect us there, and it's going to come out in some way, shape, or form.
Right now, it just brought to me again, like next time I see them out there in their uniform, I mean, you see them and you're like, hey, what's up? And they got to show that facade of being happy, because we don't know what they just went through. And I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that light to my eyes and me actually knowing that, because here I walk around in our town and I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? Oh my God. And not knowing what call they just came on, or how many hours they've been sitting there. Or is this their first lunch that they got? Or is this lunch their breakfast because they didn't get to have whatever, or they got OT? And right now, as I sit here, I just realized that, never really paid attention to what law enforcement really went through and what they do.
Yeah.
Wow. And that bringing us to your faith, and that's when you started praying, and who would have known? No one would have known that before those calls, or when you're out there, Lord, be with me, go before me, God, because I cannot do this. I need your strength and your help. And that's awesome to hear, because knowing that there's still law enforcement out there right now that still pray, that still take their job seriously. And I'm not saying none of them do, but I'm saying take it to the next level. I believe, just sitting here talking to you right now, that you took it from being the man of the home, starting work at a young age, God preparing you for each step of your way, from the trust with the what's her name?
Jaycee Dugard.
Jaycee, and going through your divorce and moving forward and doing all that stuff, that God has just prepared you for everything, which He always does. And then you get to retire. So I'm going to take a little shift real quick. And you said you retired, and you were looking for hobbies.
Oh, I know where this is going. Well, when we retire early, some of us like to recapture our youth, and it's interesting, and we can laugh about it now. I saw you look at my leg shifting under here. Well, we all know those electric scooters. We've gone to, some of us have gone out to L.A., San Diego, and all that, and they have them renting, or lime birds, or whatever they call these things, birds, lime bikes, or whatever. And all these are a blast. And I did it down in San Diego, and
it was fun then. Huh?
It was fun. It's a blast. And we ended up buying it. I thought, okay, something to do. we like to get out on the weekends and do different things. I'm like, okay, we could maybe go to, I don't know, around Sausalito or whatever, and throw these in, and they fold up, they'll throw in the back of our car, and we can go for a little scooter ride and all that. And I remember just getting on. She happened to be working from home that day, and I said, I'm going to go down to the post office and drop my mom's birthday card off, and we live around the corner from the post office downtown, and I'm going to take the scooter. And my wife Maggie says, I'll make sure you wear your helmet. And we bought these really cool Tony Hawk helmets that I hadn't worn yet. I'd admit, kids, wear your helmets, please.
Yes, very, very important.
I hadn't worn my helmet I've ridden it around the neighborhood, took it out 4 or 5 times, and I had a blast. I'm like, I don't want to wear this. I look like a dork and all this stuff. Here's this 52-year-old guy, 53-year-old, I forgot how old I am, out riding a scooter. But it was fun. I'll admit it was fun. And so I put my helmet on, and I took a selfie. I showed her my last picture before the injury. And said, see, honey, I got my helmet on. And so I go up to the post office, drop my thing off, my letter or my birthday card off, and I came out, and something happened. I wobble, and I went down, and I don't know if I blacked out or what. I woke up, my foot was in the wrong direction. I was in the middle of the roadway. My left foot was in the wrong direction. I knew it was bad. Thankfully, a city of Brentwood employee came and parked behind me, and then I had another lady come up and ask me my name and asked if she could pray for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this must be really bad. God bless her for that. But and I remember calling my wife. I found my phone. I called her. I said, honey, I need you to for some weird split second, I thought maybe I can just walk home. My foot was it was barely hanging on, without getting too graphic about it. It was bad.
But we're going to show pictures if you send them to us.
I bet. Yeah. So I called my wife. I said, hey, honey, I broke my ankle. I think that's what I said, right? I broke my ankle. I'm out here at the post office. Well, I have a history of being a joker. I practical joker. I joke with, God bless her, but she puts up a lot from me. And I think she thought I was joking at first, because it was the whole put your helmet on thing. And I said, no, I'm serious. I broke my ankle. And she ended up coming down, and I hated that she even had to see it, but
we all seen it.
It's okay. So that was interesting. I survived 30 years of law enforcement without having to take a ride in the back of an ambulance as being a patient. So got a nice little ride down to Kaiser, and they had some surgery done. And what are we, 6 months later? 6 months later, I'm still kind of hobbling around, but I'm getting there. I'm up to, I know I run into you guys when I'm walking in the neighborhood. Yes. I'm up to walking about 3 miles now, and riding my bike. So it's just it's getting there. It's getting there. But we were able to get this an exchange back for the scooters.
Did you? That was my next question. You took them back?
Oh gosh, yeah. We took them back. I'm very thankful that it wasn't her that got injured. I don't
think she tried to jump curbs with it though.
No, I don't even know what I was doing. It's a young person's thing.
Yeah.
And I realize that now.
Yeah.
So,
we saw the pictures. I was like, whoa, holy smoke. Yeah, that's crazy. Grandbaby.
Rylan.
Yes. I see every time we see you at the park walking the grandbaby. And how's that being a grandpa?
Oh my gosh, he is a blessing. He really is a blessing. And when we talk a little bit about retirement, and there's days where it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Who really comes down to who am I? And who is Todd now after I've retired? I'm not a cop anymore. And we always say, that's not your identity. You have another identity, and you kind of lose track of that. And like, what do I like to do? Well, he keeps me on my toes, and he's just a blessing. He's absolute blessing. They live with us, and
I love it.
I get to see. We've seen him every first, pretty much every first we get to experience.
Yes.
I'm his papa, and he it's just a blessing. So that's people ask, what are you doing in retirement? Well, I'm a papa.
Isn't that crazy?
And everything that goes along with being a pop. So
it's fun.
Yes.
They say you love your children, but your grandchildren it's just totally different.
It's different. Yeah. We can be the spoilers, and and he's starting to figure that out. He's starting to come hide behind Gemma and Papa now. And
and start all the little chaos.
Yeah.
And be like, I
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah, but
Yes.
he's a blessing, and it's been absolute joy in our life.
That's right. So we're going to backtrack just a little bit. Your bride, your
Yes.
beautiful bride. When did you two meet?
We met in 2005, literally 2 months.
You started saying the story about you
Yeah,
gonna
2
call
months
her
after
and-
the big divorce, and she was working in Concord at the time, and I was able to get the courage. I didn't expect her to want anything to do with me. I mean, my ego was so small at that time.
So your partner, right? You were working at that time, though. You're the one that said, "Hey, what about
My buddy, yeah,
your buddy?
yeah.
Was he a law enforcement as well?
Yes, yes.
So she wasn't in law enforcement. So you must have. Was she a friend of his, or was she? Would you go to the hospital a lot?
Her friend is my best friend's friend, or her wife.
Okay.
Wife. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were friends in high school. So it was
Got
again
it.
small world kind of thing, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Right away. It's like, hey, how about Maggie?
yeah. So and here we
Well,
are.
he did great. He did great for you.
Yeah, he
okay?
did.
He really did.
I don't know
Yeah.
what she's doing with me, but I'm blessed.
We're gonna find that out.
absolutely
we'll find
very
that
blessed.
out. We'll find out the truth. So being a grandpa, being a husband, being retired. So what do you have any plans, like, as being retired? We know Maggie's still working, but do you have any plans, like you want to?
Right now, we've talked about that. We don't have any immediate plans. We do like to do
Great.
little short trips and that kind of thing with what we can. Maggie's fortunate. Her work is a little flexible. She can work from home sometimes, and she's nearby, so she doesn't have a long commute. So it makes it a little easy if I need something or she needs to work from home or help out with Rylan or whatever. But right now, I think on my end of it is kind of figuring who I am. I have my own journey.
Right.
It's a journey with Christ, and also journey with figuring out who is Todd.
Right.
After this, people ask that question all the time. Are you gonna get another job? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I could. I really don't need to, but I need to kind of figure some other things out. I mean, being home with Rylan is
You
great.
have a job.
and-
You're a grandpa.
yeah, and exercising and try to get back into shape a little bit and stay healthy. And right now, that's my focus. And again, my journey with Christ, and I still say that I'm in the beginning stages here, because
Right.
even though I've through law enforcement, now I'm really, I would say within the last couple of years, I've really gotten a lot closer and
Awesome.
accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior, and
Awesome.
and I'm looking forward to that journey. So
That is so awesome. It's funny how we learn something new from him every day. The more I read, the more I understand his plans for my life. And I just think it's great, because just when I think it's my plans, it turns out to be not my plans. It's his plans.
yeah.
Other than that, you're, like I said, you are very humble. I mean, I don't know if people tell you that. And like you say, I don't take any credit for anything. And just speaking with you is amazing. Your story, which I remember at the beginning, you're like, I don't even think I have a story. You do have a story. And if you could give anybody any advice we're going to go back to when you were growing up with your mom and being the man of the house and taking that responsibility, as they call the Gen Z. Is that what
Is that what they call them now?
I guess Gen Z. I don't know. Is that what? Yeah. Okay. I see Cody over there shaking his head. So like the Gen Z right now, which my grandson says he's the Gen Z, and that's where I get it from. He wants everything handed to him, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
What advice could you give them if there's somebody out there right now listening to us or watching us, and they're trying to walk in that, whether it's believing in God or knowing Jesus, that relationship, or just trying to find themselves as a young man when you were 15 or 12 or however old you were, as growing up, what could you give them? What kind of advice would you give them to be able to accept the fact being a man isn't easy, from my understanding? It isn't easy, because it isn't easy being a woman and a mother and a grandmother and all that. But what advice would you give them to keep them going to the next level?
That's a tough one, because of the culture change that has occurred. A time between the time I was 15,
Right.
that age to where it is now. I know it sounds a little cliche, but listen to your parents when they, they're, what do they call us now, boomers or whatever it is. I don't know what it is.
I don't even know.
They're just a boomer and all that. But listen to them when they, they say that, when I was your age, I had a job and I learned skills and that sort of thing. At a very early age, I learned how to change my oil, or I scrub toilets for a living to pay the bills or whatever. Listen to them,
Right.
because that teaches you work ethic and how to get along to people, how to talk to people. We used to see kids that were coming in to apply for law enforcement. It was their first job.
Wow.
And law enforcement is something that I think the standards have changed, unfortunately, quite a bit. But we wanted people with or with some kind of life experience, something.
Right.
We didn't want to see, I graduated from high school and then I went to a 4-year college and then I'm here now. Well, what's your work history? Well, I haven't worked. I work at Starbucks for 6 months or whatever. Well, we want to see some work ethics.
And that they put up for.
Is it's just not there. This is I think a lot of stuff, I think social media and all that stuff has done some bad things to the kids where they want everything instant.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier, they want things and they want them now.
Right.
Because and it's not their fault. That's just the way society and technology and all that stuff is brought up to them. They weren't brought up, they're brought up with, I can do DoorDash, or I can do this, or I can find out the answer to this thing here without even opening a book. All I have to do is, you don't even have to type it in. You can speak it. They Google
Right. Right.
what's this? And that's just in their minds. And so I would, again, going back to what advice I would say, listen to your parents when they say, I want you to get a job. It's not because they're sick of how you around the house. I mean, I don't know, maybe that might be it, but they want you to instill the work ethics and the responsibilities in there, because that is going to carry through for the rest of your life.
Right.
And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for, we didn't have a lot of money when we grew up, and like I said, it was normal. It was just normal. You didn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of thinking twice, and I don't want to go flip burgers, or I don't want to do this and do that. And
right.
So.
It's funny that you say that, because my grandson, he is right now, I want it now. He's 11, and but since he was 5, he's always wanted to be a police officer, and it's scary right now. And he still wants to be a police officer. He's in Powell right now, and he's the youngest one. He wants to be a police officer, and he still talks about it till this day. And he said that if he can't become a police officer, and I told him that it's not used in our vocabulary, it's not, I can't. He said he wants to be a pilot, I guess, and he wants to protect our country. And so that even scares me more, but he is veering towards that. He can tell you everything about World War I and II.
That's awesome.
Everything. He can tell you every plane they've ever created in history right now. So it's scary, but it's the responsibility of where he wants to go and what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But he's still that Gen Z where it's gimme.
Yeah.
He said there was kids at school ordering DoorDash and they had to take phones from kids. I'm like, are you
ridiculous?
kidding me?
Yeah.
It's at lunchtime. And, and I told him, I don't want to know who it was, but I asked him, where's your phone at? And he says, we have to put it in our backpacks. We can't take it out. And I'm just like, you better not ever take your phone out of your backpacks.
Things have changed.
It's crazy. And like you mentioned, you could speak into a phone now and
don't have to open a book.
No, you don't have to. And so I asked that, what advice you can give, because listening to your parents is really the true thing to do.
Yeah.
Because we've been there. We've done that. We've already went through it. Through good, bad, and ugly. It's all been the same.
The other thing I wanted to add is I didn't have that opportunity, but when we talk about faith and all that, there's so many churches that have youth groups, and they get the kids involved, and it's such a great play. I wish I had that growing up. It probably would have changed things for me, my direction a little bit, maybe not, but it's such a great thing for kids to get involved in. And the world right now is I will say, I used to work with kids. I was an SRO for a little bit at Concord, and I worked with kids a lot. And this was several years ago. I can't imagine what's going through their minds post-COVID. It's a very scary place. There's a lot of questions. It's very scary for them. And one thing that I have found, especially with all this craziness, is having that faith.
Right.
Is that, we're going to be okay. It's going to be some scary times, but we're going to be okay.
Right.
And for kids to be able to get that, you're hanging out with like-minded kids at school, and you can ask questions, or at the youth groups and ask questions and start your journey then, I would also recommend that as well. And it's fun for these kids.
It is.
And it gets them off the street, and they're starting their path. So
that PAL and everything else, that they have the resources.
Yeah.
So when Todd said SRO, I can't even say the letters. School resource officer.
Yeah.
For those of you that are watching or listening, Todd was in that you were the school resource officer at that time. Is there anything that you can say from now, like from today, what would be good for anybody who's watching or listening? Any advice, not going back to when you were younger, but right now, if you want to follow a path or a career and have Christ, guide you, what would be something that you would tell our listeners and our viewers?
I would say, don't be intimidated.
That's good.
It's everybody's path is different. My path is different than my wife's path and my buddy's path, and but I'm on a path. And ask questions. There's plenty of people that you can ask questions. If you choose to go down this path, and I highly recommend it. I mean, to be able to have that, I drew on that strength really without knowing it, I think, throughout my career.
Right.
Now I'm kind of putting pieces together, but get involved. Get involved with your church and get involved and ask questions and learn the word and do something. Get a daily devotional thing where first thing you look, instead of looking, I'm the worst one to do this. I turn on the news in the morning, but I'm trying to break that habit and get into daily devotionals and get into the word. Break some of those habits there. It's helped me out a lot too. Just don't be intimidated by it. There's nothing.
That's good. That's good. Life's a journey, and we try to do the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know that what Christ-centered is the biggest thing. And we want to thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
If there's anything you want to add to this, or because you did have a story, and as much as you kept saying, I don't have a story, you do have a story.
Hopefully it was interesting.
It's very interesting. And for me, like I said, it brought back, as you speak, it brought to the point where God was preparing you all through that time to be at those specific places at each time. And nothing is by coincidence, people. Everything is by divine appointment. It's a timing. It's God's timing. We'd like to thank you again, and we'll be hearing from your bride next.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you'd like to go and support us, you can by going down into the description to our Patreon and our other social media platforms. We give all the praise to God. Have a blessed day. Peace.